A new moon in Cancer on the same day that the lunar nodes change signs, the true lunar nodes, the final Syzygy, the final new moon or full moon before Venus stations retrograde and we undergo a rebirth process with Venus. This time is a time of both rebirth and also kind of a sign-off for a season of astrology. We're going to dive in, new moon in Cancer here, 17 July 2023. Stay tuned. All right. This is S.J. Anderson. Welcome to my channel. Here to talk about more transiting astrology, more ongoing astrology, more unfoldment of the reality vis-a-vis the planetary movement, which is what astrology is. The movement of the heavens, how do they correspond to events that happen on Earth? How do we find meaning? How do we derive meaning from those movements and their symbolic activations and apply that meaning into our lives? Or to our lives. This is it. This is another video. Really interesting time. I'm feeling this pre-Venus retrograde station moment quite strongly. A lot of culminative energy. And so let's dive in here because this new moon arrives to usher in newness at a moment of the Venusian culmination. Here we go. Let's just break it down. I'm going to jump right in. 17 July 2023, 1831 UTC, which is 6:30 p.m. UTC. We get this beautiful new moon in Cancer. Why do I say beautiful? Well, Cancer I think is a beautiful sign because it's the pure nature of being. It's the material encasement of being is what Cancer can signify as the moon rules Cancer. And then it's the beautification that can come with that. I think I say that partially because the moon is the ruler of Taurus and it's about the pleasures and comforts and things that make us feel safe and secure and good. You know, are you feeling good? This can be a Cancerian key question or a key query. Hey, how you feeling? And so we get a new moon here with these energies combining. I just love the beauty of Cancer. This new moon also sextiles its exaltation ruler in Taurus, which is Jupiter and Taurus being mutually received by that moon by exaltation. And so we get this lovely mutual reception. I like to refer to rulers. Signs have rulers. It's not just one ruler. I think there's been a strange turn in modern 20th century astrology where one of the things we lost, I generally don't think we should just rue the 20th century astrological work because there's major things that happen there that are extremely important. But if I had to pick one of the things that I tend to look and say, boy, we lost this, and I think it was important more than other things we lost. It's the idea that signs have more than one ruler. It's not just Uranus rules Aquarius and that's it, no questions asked, books shut. And I say that deliberately because also in the 20th century, modern outer planets, these dwarf planets, I mean, all of the multiplicity of major outer points start getting assigned rulership over signs, and then some people even want to shut the book on other rulers. There's only one ruler, and it's going to be Uranus over Aquarius. To me, that's where the multiplicity of planetary rulership over signs was lost. And if there's one thing to rue, that's the thing. But just to come back here, you can see that the ruler of Cancer is not singularly the moon. It's also Jupiter and Taurus, and that's why you have the mutual reception. And if there's a major planetary ruler of any sign, it's the domicile lord, and the exaltation lord is the one I would definitely put on that list for the 7 signs that have exaltation lords. Anyhow, a little bit of my kind of how I see the development of the tradition. I love all of the psychological and transpersonal and all of the even theosophical and spiritualization of astrology in the 20th century, big time. But I think rulership's so essential for how we talk about the interrelationship between planets and other planets and sectors of the chart vis-a-vis signs. So let's come back. You can see beautiful reception. And what does that bring in? It brings in Jupiter and Taurus, truth, revelation, and wisdom around the earth energy, the earth of the beautification of the environment. It can be the physical body and the adornment of the body. It can be literally the beauty of nature, things I've talked about a lot in a lot of recent videos. But that's brought in, and then there's a flowing supportive sextile between the birth of the new Cancerian and this beautiful earthy wisdom. And so that's why I say here it's a beautiful new moon in Cancer. It's the final cardinal syzygy before the true node's ingress into cardinal signs within 1.5 hours after this. So this comes at 1831. The nodal ingress is right at 8 o'clock UTC. So that's a major thing when you look at a new moon in cardinal signs here in Cancer and you say, wow, the eclipse has now come to bear on cardinal signs. The fated change is now angular to all cardinal signs within the hours here. I think we can pretty clearly say that this new energy that the new moon seeds has to do with fatedness and eclipses here over not only the next lunation or lunar month, but this is symbolic for the whole of the 18-month cycle that's about to arrive in cardinal signs. And so I am thinking here that we can think about this 17th new moon as like, wow, look at all this new stuff for our cardinal axis. You may just want to sit down and say, what houses do the cardinal signs comprise in your whole sign chart? Is it the angular houses, the succedent houses, or the cadent houses? And those sectors, those houses are about to have a bunch of new energy and a bunch of inversions and fated changes because of the simultaneous ingress of the nodes here. And so that might be one major way into this new moon, you know, meditating. What's new in my, for example, I'm a cardinal rising, so in my angular houses, and I can think about all of those, the crux of the chart, those core significations in the chart are about to be, fate is about to arrive to, you know, inject what it does into that sector. I'm going to have a whole video I'm going to release within a day or two of this about the node and the nodal story, a big breakdown of what the nodes are about to do. But that's one way in. And what do I have here? Deep core of selfhood. We can honor and bask in it. That's Cancer, the deep core of the encasement of the self. And we can bask in it as the spiritual node shift signs. Who am I? What does it mean to be incarnated into a body? How is my relationship with my body? How is the self-talk? How do I talk about my body? How do I treat my physical body? Am I grateful for this vehicle that I've been given? It's that whole thing of people that like take care of their cars, oil changes, tire changes, and that car becomes, you know, becomes a main tool for how they conduct their living in this material realm. We have a vehicle. And so I think this Cancer new moon can be like maybe newness around treating our vehicle well. Are there oil changes that you need to make, etc., as a metaphor for your physical body or your material environment? Remember, Jupiter and Taurus, love and beautify, might be just the way that we can do some self-care right now. And this is also the last new moon before Venus stations retrograde, or the last Syzygy before Venus stations retrograde. Big deal. It's not just that this new moon ushers in a nodal shift, it also ushers in the death of Venus and how Venus will now be reborn over the next 40 days and 40 nights. That happens 5 days after this new moon. But think here about the new realities of life that Venus's death and rebirth cycle may usher in for you. And that's another key contemplation here. It's a great time to have the sun seed the moon anew, and then think about, hey, over this next lunation, Venus will be retrograde for a bunch of it. And revisit Leo, revisit those themes that I talked about in that Summer of Love video that I made about the heart and how both Leo and Venus are heart-centric. And there's something about the core nature of human beings and how we generate love and how we are love generators and that we are of the nature of love. And then we're encased in a physical form. Who do you want to love? How do you love yourself? How do you project your love into the world around us and around you? This is what Venus's death and rebirth, I think, can signify at one major level. So look for that as something that can be brought into this new moon moment. Venus rules Cancer by day triplicity after all. And again, I go back to that rulership rant that I just gave there. Sorry about that. I was on Twitter and I was saying Saturn rules Libra, and I got kind of chastised a little bit by someone. So it's okay. Listen, I'm all for debates and I'm all for astrologers coming together to share their different ideas. And in my tweet response to that person, I was like, we have different nomenclature. There's different traditions and ways of understanding rulership, and we have different words and different connotations for the words we use in the astrological vocabulary. So we got to have acceptance, you know, we got to have love and acceptance for those of us. You know, we can't just come in and say, this is how it is. That's not only how it is, actually. There's a multiplicity of different nomenclatures and understandings. Anyhow, now I'm back on my rant. But the thing is that when we talk about rulership in the way that I like to understand it, there's many rulers of a sign, including the triplicity lord. And so Venus would rule Cancer then. It does, by day triplicity. And that Venusian rulership over the new moon, it brings in this major thing of the station retrograde of Venus right here in the moment, right in this chart. So this, in a way, can be thought of as a sort of a deathbed celebration of life. And I'm seeing this a lot. I'll talk about it in some later slides, that as Venus is in an evening star now, there's a real culmination of the Venusian. And I'm seeing a lot of celebrations around Venus right now, which is really cool. And I think this new moon allows us to do that. Remember, mutual reception, moon and Jupiter in that mutual reception. So Jupiter's a celebration energy in the Venus-ruled sign Taurus. Wonderful, right? So think about that too. This whole year leading up to the summer, I know a lot of you out there did a lot of cool stuff in May, June, July already. Had a lot of cool, maybe relationship expansion or travel, all of that. Just this is a time to be like, yeah. And now there's a new you being formulated and being born from these recent experiences of this night, evening star Venus. So consider that during this new moon moment here, 17 July, 1831 UTC. Some more on this idea of deep appreciation. When I think about Cancer, one of the first images comes to mind for me. I couldn't find the artwork. It goes around Twitter every year. You'll see every 18 months. But there's this artwork, and I think I've shared it in one of my videos before, where you have a woman birthing a child, and then that child grows into an adulthood, and then you have the death of that life, and it's crawling into like the womb of a kind of a mother death figure. It's a painting. And this idea of deep cycles of life and death, that to me, Cancer really at its highest octave wants us to go there. And I have here, your mother, the womb I came out of. My mom came out of a womb, and that was my grandmother, and that's why I love my grandmother, because I realized that, my mother was inside my grandmother and I was inside my mother. It's a kind of a weird way to think about things, but I was basically inside my grandmother in some strange way. There's like these loops all the way back between moms, and even some religions, I think in the Judaic faith, some of the forms of Judaism, they're always tracing lineage through the mother. And I think it's because of this deep Cancerian idea that we're all kind of connected through the wombs that we've come out of here. This goes back hundreds of thousands of years to hundreds of thousands. I mean, it gets older and older. Every news story, every period, there's like, okay, now we found human beings 120,000 years ago, 150,000 years ago. That's my mother. That's my ancient mother back there, all the way back, and yours. And so when you have this new moon in Cancer, I'm going here. I like to just contemplate this. I've got the Art of Life and Death. And this is a sculpture by the artist Sam Jinks. I found this. I was trying to find that other artwork, but I found this sculpture. It captures the same energy. Here's an older woman holding a young baby, and this kind of loop of death and life, and how death is life, right? We're born to die. The Lana Del Rey song, the title of one of her records. And I think, is there a song too? Some of you Lana Del Rey fans probably know. I need to put that on. By the way, Lana Del Rey, I haven't ever really listened to her music much, but I saw she wrote a book of poetry selling at the bookstore where I live. I picked it up. I was like, dang, this is some cool poetry. Maybe Lana Del Rey is like this very important, it seems like, all of the hype might be true about Lana Del Rey. I've got to get deeper into her work, but maybe I should do that for a new moon in Cancer. I think she's a Cancer rising. My friend and astrologer, Randon Rosenbaum, got that on Twitter a few years back. I'm maybe misremembering that, but the idea is here is that we come into the world, one thing is guaranteed once you're born, that you're going to die. And so we're born to die. Life is about leading to this moment of death. And we think about it with the Venus cycle. Venus was reborn in Capricorn back in 2022, early in the year, and now Venus is here to die, right, in Leo. And this is the cycle of the planets. They're born and they die vis-a-vis their relationship with the sun. They become visible, then they're not visible. And so just think about this. The sun will meet the north bending also in the days immediately after this new moon. The other video I'm going to release, check it out on the nodes. I'm going to have a chart and talk all about this. But it's like a mere 2 days later, the sun will square the lunar nodes at the north bending and be opposing Pluto. And so what better moment in this new moon a few days before in Cancer to like contemplate death and life and cycles and mothers and all of these energies. And I'm sure some of you out there, this may have literal meaning if you're working with the mother figures in your life. So, and here is what I was saying here about this celebration of Venus and the final days of Venus's life cycle before it stations retrograde. And look at this, Barbie and Oppenheimer, these two big movies that are major works of art. I mean, Christopher Nolan is the prime director in a lot of ways of his generation in terms of big creative works. He's releasing a picture with Cillian Murphy, the Irish actor, about Oppenheimer at the same day that Barbie, Margot Robbie, the Australian actress, directed by, though, the American auteur, Greta Gerwig, another very creative and like I say, an auteur who's got some really great work in film. So this is works of art. These are beautiful works of art for the human sort of best of our artists right now in a certain way. I know there's always disagreements about that, but this is coming out here on the 20th. Both these pictures get released. Or I think it's the 20th or 21st. It's 20th where I am and maybe 21st in America. I'm going to go see these. I'm going to go sit in the cinema and watch because I'm going to celebrate Venus through my favorite medium, or one of my favorite, which is film. And the reason why film is Venus is because Venus in the ancient world is the mixing of colors, it's painting, it's beautification and adornment, it's sweet singing, and film combines all of those Venusian crafts. It's moving pictures, it's sound, it's all of it. So it's like pure Venus in a certain way. A big Mercury element to film too, with editing and the detail orientation and writing. But celebrate Venus, and you can see a lot of these energies are pulling to this weekend of celebration of the Venusian craft before it turns backwards right after this new moon in Cancer. So it's part of this moment we're in. Enjoy these pictures. I know I will. Okay, I want to come in now. We can't talk about this new moon without this subplot, this subtext for it, which is Mars in Virgo is opposing Saturn in Pisces, very closely applying in this new moon moment. And the good thing is it's not harming the new moon. That's why I'm not going to center this in my delineation, because the new moon is sextile Mars by sign, and it's trine Saturn by sign. Easy flowing aspects. Most of the time with aspects, we're very concerned with Mars and Saturn when they're making hard aspects to things. And in this new moon, it's the moon and Jupiter are the two primary rulers, and Venus. All of those placements as well are not making hard aspects to Mars and Saturn. So Mars and Saturn doesn't do a lot of damage here. That said, it's energetically playing a role because it's part of the imprint of this astrological moment. And remember this conversation I had in the Mars and Virgo video, getting lost as a result of digging in. You know, Mars brings us into the detail-orientated action, like the character in Chinatown, Jake Geddes, and then you get lost in these larger, confusing, institutional things. So there's that's happening here. But Mars opposite Saturn, no matter what sign of the zodiac it's happening in or signs it's happening in, it's a tough energy of tension. It's two malefic forces opposing each other. You know, restriction and kind of deep grief opposite the force of passionate action. That's not easy. You might be feeling drained or overworked. You know, Mars in Virgo is a big work transit. I mean, as soon as it hit Virgo for me, it's like overwhelmed immediately with stuff. I'm doing okay with it, but I mean, this could be part of your story too in this new moon. So watch for that. But know, and this is the big message, that Jupiter is trining Saturn, still very close, and it's sextiling Mars. And so it's the Jupiter in Taurus ruling the new moon that's overcoming the new moon by sextile earlier in zodiacal order, but it's also overcoming Mars by trine. It's a great ace in the hole. It's a great mitigation for the Mars-Saturn opposition. And I just want to say, back to Jupiter, truth, wisdom, revelation, justice around the beauty and the adornment and the earth and the pleasures. You might focus on your pleasure needs during this time to relieve stress. And I'm here thinking about all kinds of things, but just what foods do you like to eat? Prototypical Taurus, making food, being with family, being in the home, showing love through food. All of that Taurus Cancer stuff can come through strongly here as a mitigation strategy if you're feeling tension with this opposition. Okay, and like I enjoy doing in my new moon, full moon videos, I'm going to find that election. There's really one that I'm focused on here, the best one. The others aren't quite as strong and maybe weak. But it's the moon in Leo with Venus right before Venus stations. This is the 19th and 20th with this Leo moon. That is a young moon, it's visible, it's waxing, it's with the benefic Venus, it's being squared by the benefic Jupiter, it's averse to Mars and Saturn. You can get this separating from Mercury applying to Venus, you can get this separating from Jupiter applying to Mercury. This moon has a lot to like about it, and I'm using this. I'm going to have a video that's being launched on this day that's kind of a special launch with a friend and a partner. You may know who. I've worked with him before. We're going to launch some videos on this day. But it's a great election, I think, the final one here before the retrogradation of Venus. If you need to sneak something in, you can sneak this in. And the beautiful thing is the fixed axis is free from both the lunar nodes by this time. No lunar nodes in the fixed axis. So we don't run afoul of Vettius Fallon's kind of prime electional directive, which is never have the moon squaring the nodes in an election. That's over. and Mars and Saturn are both in the mutable axis. So the only free axis where there's no nodes or Mars or Saturn is the fixed axis. So this is that lovely fixed axis benefic celebration. It's the election for that. And what do I have here? Party or release right here at the last moment. It's that final, like the New Year's Eve parties. It's the end of the year. And then we get the new year that comes the next day, which is the Venus cycle. 13 August, Venus is purified, and then it's this new young Venus. We'll have a Mercury retrograde. That ends like 14, 15 September. So we're about to have a lot of new births. Then we have a first eclipse in Libra. That's all new. In some ways, this election might be able to capture a final kind of party or release vibe, or releasing. When I say release here, I mean like making something and releasing it. You know, if you need to use an election here, it's the fire element. It's the power of Leo. It's the force and power of this fiery energy. So use this one. I'm going to, and I love that this is here. All right, that is the new Moon in Cancer video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it. Just hang on. It's getting intense and hot. This July month, I'd said this in a previous video, is a lot actually happening, a ton. I think by August, and Venus is retrograde and Mercury's retrograde, this can be some cool down and relax energy. I'm hoping to do a lot of that. You can always go to sjanderson1144.com. Click here to schedule an astrology reading right at the top. Always check in where the planets are if you want to use that resource, a nice visual representation that centers traditional planets and the elements. Take care of yourself. Enjoy these big changes. 17 July, nodes ingress, new moon. Have a great one. Talk to you real soon. And check out this other video I'm going to release right with this about the lunar nodes in a new axis. Take care.